It's time for Lisa Popcak. Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning, everyone. You guys cracked me up. What a lovely way to start the day.
Yeah, you just sent me a text saying, I can't believe I'm a part of this. Like, oh my goodness.
Is it my turn again?
Lisa, words are so powerful in their effect, right? Our conversations with one another, we've got to be careful about the words we say. But you have a very unique approach, one word that can renew your family life. Can't wait to hear about this.
I will tell you what this word is and break this down for you, and I bet you that outside of perhaps the church itself, a lot of our listeners have not heard this word in a long, long time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And the word is virtue.
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 Wow.
Now, we may hear
Pat
about
likes that word.
virtue
Yeah,
in
that's my
terms
show.
of someone's reputation. But it has been a long time since we as a society, and especially we as parents and grandparents, have thought about using virtue and the words to describe certain virtues in our daily conversations with our kids, in what we call out in our kids and ourselves. And it can change everything. Because when we think about our interactions with our children, trying to raise them to be good people, we'll often use words like, that's good, that's bad, don't do that. That's, we just have these vague words. But when we look at even Christian virtues, right? We have faith, hope, and love. But then, we go down to the cardinal virtues, things like prudence and temperance and fortitude and kindness and patience and diligence, self-control, perseverance. When we start recognizing that in our children's behavior, defining those words in our house through our conversation, suddenly we're building up a storehouse of strength in ourselves when we hold ourselves to those virtues and in our family members that can change everything for us. So let me give you an example of this, right? If we are raising our kids and we want them to get good grades. I was just discussing this with somebody on our Catholic HOM app yesterday. And they're doing all the stuff, we want them to get A's, they didn't get an A, and the only standard is the grade. Well, it's very hard to constantly reach that standard, and that leaves us feeling incompetent when we don't. But if we can say to our children, if you're diligent with your studying, if we go over your spelling words, your math facts, those history, things that you have to study diligently every day, then the grade outcome should be good. But if something odd happened and it wasn't, you still know you're a diligent person. We know what to do to begin to fix that. You persevered in your studying, even on the days that it was hard. You see how that begins to change the whole perspective? Yeah. Suddenly we're concentrating on our character, the virtues that make us more like Christ, the things that we can carry with us to make us stronger in life. Is this beginning to shine a little light on the difference between just good and bad and really building up strength in our children, godliness in our children and ourselves?
So, Lisa, I think a lot of people struggle with that concept of a person's character because
we don't hear about it anymore.
Yeah, we kind of know what it might be, but we have a hard time defining it. How do you look at a person's character? How would you explain that to someone when you talk about building character?
When you're building character, you're building up strength in these great Christian virtues that the church has given us for years. And we measure ourselves against if we're doing that, if we're keeping them in mind and we're working toward them. So I can give you one that I have to use with my oldest grandson, who's all of 3 years old. And this is Rachel's son. And then those of you who have heard her pick a Popcak segment know who she is. And he's this incredibly athletic little guy, really skilled. But because he's so skilled, he thinks he can do everything. And so I can say to him, as he's climbing way too high on the monkey bars, I can say, sweetheart, let's really talk about, is this a prudent thing to do? Do you have good judgment in this? So, for example, if you're going to climb a little higher, what's your plan to get down? Do you feel like you're going to be safe up there? Let's be prudent about this. So we're defining this word. Prudence is wisdom and good judgment. It starts to train his character to think ahead, to not just run into anything and then not know what to do with it. And over time, that's going to build an adult who's going to value wisdom, value the wisdom that God can give us and the good judgment we can exercise. Justice, fairness, right? Fairness and righteousness. Right. Are you being fair and just in this moment with your brother? It builds that character little by little and gives us something to really aim for.
So is there an age that is more appropriate for kids to begin to understand this? I know you can build on it and grow, obviously, as their minds kind of grow too, as their intellect grows. But is there an age that is appropriate to start to introduce some of these things so it's not beyond them?
No. Actually, you can start from the very beginning, and a great place to start is when you're reading to your child. And read good books, like please, moms, dads, grandparents, go back to some of the books that were written before 2020, because right now a lot of the books that are written now are just about feeling good about ourselves, and that's not what we're talking about here. Books prior to 2020 really did incorporate consequences, character, virtue in people. In fact, the farther you go back, the better it is, because they were really meant to form the character of people and therefore a nation, a culture in people. So when we're reading a story to our children, we can, even at a 3 and 4 year old age, or we're watching a movie, we can pause in the midst of that and say, wow, was that person kind? Were they using self-control, or did they just let everything go? We can teach our kids any word and define it and then give them examples and begin building on this from a very early age. And it really will change the whole dynamic in your family and help you build great, strong people of God.
Wonderful. Thank you,
love
Lisa.
That.
Yeah.